Hey, how's it going, guys? Kotamush back at it with a $400 gaming PC build. Now, before I get into this video, I just want to say that this build was extremely hard to make since I am a YouTuber that doesn't use rebates in their builds. A $400 budget was very hard to do, but I thought this was pretty decent. This is the same price as a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One. Yeah, on sale, you can get a PS4 cheaper and an Xbox One, same thing, but those are the retail prices of the consoles, and this is $400. If you find some parts on sale, you could probably get it even cheaper, like $350, $360. So this is a pretty solid build that you can run any game at 1080p at around medium to high settings and still get 30-35 frames per second. And of course, with Steam deals, stuff like that, there's a lot of positives to gaming on a PC. So this $400 budget build is a great way to get into PC gaming. Starting things off with the CPU, I went with the AMD Athlon X4 860K 3.7 GHz quad-core processor. This is a great quad-core processor at a very low price of $73. And nowadays, it's pretty much essential to have 4 cores in a processor. And for $73, you're getting a really good quad-core processor that's running at 3.7 GHz. It is the 860K, so you can overclock on it, but in a $400 build, that's probably not pretty wise. But still, $73, it's 3.7 GHz stock clock, very solid CPU at a very reasonable price. For the motherboard, I went with the Gigabyte G8-F2 A88XM-D3H motherboard. That was a mouthful. It's $61. There's also a $15 mail-in rebate if you guys want to use that, but remember, I do not include those in the final tally of my build. $61 for this motherboard. Fairly solid motherboard, kind of basic, but still has all the key features you want. You got 4 RAM slots up to 2133 MHz RAM and max capacity of 64 GB of RAM. That's pretty great. And other than that, it's a fairly solid motherboard for around $61. It has all the features you want and pretty much nothing else. There's a micro ATX board, but that's not too big of a deal since this is a $400 build and that's to be expected. It's not fully featured. Obviously, you don't want to go for a Crossfire SLI configuration in a $400 build. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. So this motherboard is perfectly fine and at a great price of $61. For the memory, I went with Corsair Vengeance 8GB, 2 4GB sticks running at 1600 MHz, $56 for 8GB of RAM seemed like a no-brainer. 8GB of RAM was pretty hard to fit in this build, but you definitely want it. In cases like Witcher 3, Dying Light, it's pretty much essential to have 8GB of RAM. Don't want to go for 4 because that is quickly dying away, and you know, having 8 is definitely great. And like I said, the motherboard does have 4 RAM slots, so if you want to go for even more than 8 in the future, say 12 months down the line, you buy another kit of this RAM, you'll have 16GB of RAM then, and that'll be pretty great. But for now, going with 8GB is a smart option, and at $56, it's a very solid price for really great RAM from Corsair. For the hard drive, I went with the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB 3.5-inch 7200 RPM internal hard drive, $52 for this hard drive. Not much more to say. It's a terabyte of storage. You're going to put all your things on here, your OS, your games, your movies, your pictures, all that kind of stuff. If you do want to pick up an SSD down the line, the option is open, and with SSD prices dropping pretty much daily at this point, you know, that's an upgrade you can make 12 months, 18 months down the line, and it'll still be just as good. Right now, going with an SSD doesn't make a lot of sense. You can get a terabyte for $52. You can only get like a 120GB SSD for that kind of price. And, you know, 120GB is just not enough with games being like 60GB these days with GTA 5. So 1 terabyte for $52 seemed like a great deal. For the video card, I went with the XFX Radeon R7 260X 2GB Core Edition video card. $106 for this GPU. This can still run a lot of games at 1080p, and it does have 2GB of video buffer, which is pretty much crucial these days with a lot of these games coming out like Watch Dogs, Mordor, even Witcher 3 coming out. 2GB is pretty much essential, and it's definitely great to have even in a budget end GPU like this $106 XFX Radeon R7 260X. Now, you're not going to be running every game ultra settings at 60 FPS at 1080p, but you can run games at medium to high settings, and you have 40, 45, 50, even 60 frames per second in some of the lower end games. Battlefield 4, you can run that at 1080p, high settings at around 45 frames per second, which is comparable to the console, so that's pretty great. And for $106, you're getting a great GPU from XFX. It's 2GB, and it's at a reasonable price as well, and you can pretty much run any game at really solid settings and really solid frame rates for this kind of price range. For the power supply, I went with the EVGA 430W 80+ certified ATX power supply, $33. It's 430 watts. It's going to power the build no problem, and since you're not going to go for a Crossfire configuration or an SLI configuration in the future, 430 watts is more than enough. At max TDP, this build's only going to use like 320 watts, so 430 is perfectly fine. And for $33, this is 80+ certified, and it's from EVGA, who have a lot of great power supplies, and this one is definitely one of them. Cheap price and enough wattage for the build. Finally, for the case, I went with the NZXT Source 210 Black ATX mid-tower case. Great case for $38. Aesthetically, it doesn't look great, but at the end of the day, $400, aesthetics don't really matter. The interior is great, and that's pretty much all you're looking for in a case on a $400 build. So thanks for watching this video, guys. Remember to hit that subscribe button, like this video, comment down below with your requests for future videos, and I will talk to you all later. Peace.